Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Harpal Kochar. Thank you so much for taking the time. Madhvi, Arya, Seema, Sandhya, everybody coming on this call. We're basically just recording this session so we can, make it available to the team, others who take this course. So becomes a little easier for them to get this. So today's session is really academics. This, like I said in the last session as well, I'll kind of keep bringing you guys, everybody back to this one slide always before I start. Okay, these are your 6 dimensions based on which your college admissions is going to be based. You get any one of them wrong, your chain is only as strong as the weakest link. Okay, that is extremely important. You cannot afford to mess up either one of these. That said, some of these components have higher weightage, some have lesser, yet given the fact that most students aspire to go to very good schools, like I said, you could come up with the best essays, but if your GPA and AP performance is not on par, if you haven't if you haven't pushed yourself enough on the courses, if you are not showing that forward gradient, showing that your courses, your performance is getting better, if your SAT, ACT score is not to par. For example, yesterday I was talking to one of my students. She wants to apply to Georgetown. Her SAT score is 1380. Georgetown is one of the only universities which actually expects you to, even now, like UCs are SAT blind, most schools have become SAT optional, Georgetown is not. Okay, these are some of the good schools. In fact, even the schools which say that they are SAT optional, honestly, it's not optional. It's a rich man's game. SAT, ACT are taken by the people who have money. That's what they want to attract. They want to attract people with a lot of money who can pay list price to the schools. So SAT, and of course, SAT, ACT is an academic indicator, especially if you have 1400 and over scores. So make sure you do take it. ACT, ACT, we'll talk about some of the strategies, but these two, GPA and SAT, ACT, like I said, for a public university count to 70% of your application. And so we're going to talk mostly about GPA and AP today. All the other combined can be between 30% for a public university and up to 50% for a private university. So if you're applying to a Stanford, personal essays are super critical to them. If you're applying to University of Michigan, which is a very good public university, they will still look at GPA and SAT very importantly, but maybe they will give to these 4 components more like 40% or 35% rating. So it's just fair to assume that if it's if it's like a grade B public university, expected to be more like 80-20 or 75-25%, the difference, the allocation. If it's a good public university, expected to be like 60-40, like a University of California. If it's a Stanford, expected to be 55-45, where 55 is academics, 45 is everything else. Harvard, take it as 55-65. But again, a 55-45. Again, the the level of the 55 also changes. So at a school like Harvard, if they were to just enroll a classroom of full of valedictorians, they could fill up a classroom size 3 times over. Okay, and this is confirmed from Harvard admissions officers who are good friends of mine. Okay, so it's very important that just a 4.0 is not important. I mean, that's not what they're looking for. They want you to be a good student, but they are looking for a very holistic personality, and that's kind of what we're trying to explain in this group to everybody. Okay. That said, any questions about this part? If anybody has questions, throw it in the chat, or it's best to just throw it in the chat, because then I can keep log of the questions as well, and I can answer them the moment I'm ready. Okay. So having explained this, let's now go into the APs. Today's section is really understanding not just APs, but what are APs, what's concurrent enrollment, what's dual enrollment, what's an honors course, a lot of these things. My wife is making some curry somewhere in the house, and that's making me cough, sorry. So we're going to talk about advanced placements. Okay, what are APs, why are APs important? There are absolutely great benefits of taking APs. Okay, in my opinion, the reason you want to take APs is I have a fairly entrepreneurial business background. So to me, APs show the schools that you are ready to take college level courses. College is never going to be easy. It's a very hard place to be. So demonstrating to the schools that you have the acumen to prevail in college level courses is a great thing. I know 9th graders and 10th graders who will end up taking AP courses. There's a way to make it happen. We'll talk over at some point. If you need to just privately DM me, we can do that too. But it's not rocket science taking APs, okay? It definitely broadens your college and career choices. So take APs because you want to know what kind of careers are available. Like take AP Psych, AP Calc. When you take these APs, you realize how hard things can be or how much more fun they can be. Um, Many schools will, actually most schools will give you at least some kind of a credit for taking an AP. So on an average, it costs about $5,000 to take a class at at Shreya School, where my daughter was at Wellesley. Her school charges $8,000 per class, okay, per semester. So if she takes that same class through an AP exam, it's $95 and she can get a credit for that. And Shreya did get a lot of credit. So some of the easier courses like Calc AB, Calc BC, not easy, but the ones which you have to take in first year of college, international language, like Spanish 4 or AP, okay? Make sure you do all those things in your APs. So it costs $95 there versus $8,000 in private university, what gives, right? I mean, not 8,000, more like 6,500 something. So that's one of the big reasons to, in my opinion, to take AP. Like my daughter is on par right now to graduate in 4 years. It's simply because she was able to take the APs and all, quite a lot of them early on. Okay. And you of course stand out in the process. Now, this doesn't mean you land up going crazy with APs. Okay. You don't want to land up taking like 10 APs or 8 APs or even the easier APs. APs, there's a strategy around APs. You don't want to just, the whole reason we take APs is to better our weighted GPA. So there's unweighted and weighted. Unweighted is what you get from the school when you get a 4.0 or 3.6 or BA, whatever you get in your class. And then AP is because they are from a score of 0 to 5, whereas regular courses are from 0 to 4. If you get a 5 there, you are able to then get an unweighted score or weighted score of more than 4. So many times students will come and say, my unweighted GPA is 3.8 and my weighted is 4.3, which means they'd land up taking 2-3 APs where they landed up getting an A. And that in the average of scheme bumped up their GPA, okay? So what APs do is they give you a head start to school, as I just talked about. They boost your GPA, which we just talked about as well. You get college credits from getting from here. You stand out and you get on placement in advanced honors. So you can actually skip introductory courses. And to me, this is why I highlighted this in green. It's really about saving money. That said, this is the list of all the APs. There are like 36 courses in APs that are allowed or given, offered in high school. Your high school might offer less or more, like 36 is the maximum. No, I don't know any school that offers all 36 personally, okay? Depending if it's a STEM magnet, they will offer multiple courses there. But AP capstone is like when you're doing research. So you can do AP research, AP seminar. Few students do that, not too many. Particularly STEM schools don't even have this. Like Shreya School, the one which my younger daughter goes to, Dia, doesn't even offer this. I have students who are doing this, arts right now, 2D art, 3D art. And this really shows you very, very creatively for, especially if you're applying to like in, schools like Juilliard, or you're applying to creative schools like liberal arts schools, very, very important. English Lit is a hard AP, but an English composition. I really recommend taking these because English is a language all of us can speak well. It's not very hard to get coached into something like this, but I really like these parts a lot. I know students will end up taking a lot of macroeconomics, psychology, world history. APUSH is considered harder. Again, since there are no questions, I'm not stopping, but if there are any questions, I can stop. But this is like the list of APs. Then comes the APs for mathematics and computer science, AB, BC, CSA, CSP. So CSP is fairly easy. This one even 9th graders can take, okay? And given many of the parents I talk to have a tech background, they can teach this one. Statistics is not hard. 10th graders, 11th graders can easily crack this one. This one, take an AB, self-study for the BC. You don't have to take AP in the school. So this is a question I get commonly. Should I self-study for a AP or take it in the school? It all depends, right? I mean, if you want to showcase your mastery over a subject, that you really wanted to do it in detail, then take the AP in the school and then take the exam. If you want to just show that you were an exceptional student and then you took some classes outside, you can show demonstrated interest, then you can just take an AP exam on your own. but don't make the mistake of just taking the AP exam and not talking about it in your essays about how you develop interest and how you were able to study for it, right? Don't show yourself to be a rich kid who could get a tutor from outside and just took the exam. So these are some myths about APs. And, do you really always have to be like, AP's courses are for students who always get good grades? Well, not always the case. I mean, you could end up getting a 3 in a AP and the school will take it. The school has to by college, by rules. If you get a 3 on a AP, they have to accept that as a score. It doesn't sound stellar, but it's better than having not taken an AP at all. Okay. If you have a 2, obviously don't even submit that score. You can submitting APs is optional. That's that. AP courses are hard and stressful. They are. They can be challenging, but honestly, if you just start in January and you plan for the May, like you register by November, December, start in Jan or like in the vacations, find a tutor or online tutor or somebody to help you out to put you on path. It's not too hard. And worst case, if you're not prepared, don't give the exam, no? But it's okay. Just go for it. Yeah, you might not know if the AP is for you. Talk to your guidance counselor in the school or the teachers. Could taking an AP hurt my GPA? Well, I mean, if you're taking an AP, like one of my students actually took an AP in bio and he failed the exam. I mean, he got a damn good score in the school, but he failed the exam. And this guy looking to go to med school. So now he's not going to apply and he's not going to submit his bio score, which is kind of a bad thing, but because he failed. So that kind of stupidity happens. So best if it's an AP that you're going to be, that matters towards your major that you're thinking about, and many of the students don't know what major they're going to take, take it in the 11th grade. So at least even if you don't have a good enough grade, you can improvise in the 12th grade, okay? Or even take 10th grade. Okay, there's finally a question in the chat. Is AP English good to opt for STEM? Yes, absolutely. What happens is, Madhvi, is that if you're a STEM student, you're going to do well in the calc A, B, B, C, and you're going to show physics and all that stuff. But for a well-rounded student, if you're looking to go to Caltech or you're looking to go to Stanford, they're looking for a student who has a end-to-end profile, which is really solid. Okay, so taking an English, in fact, even taking a Spanish AP along with that, absolutely shows a well-rounded side to both sides of the circle. So yes, 100%. Okay, so clearly the number of APs that people take have grown. Okay, the number you can see exponentially, like between 2002, how many students were sat for the AP exams, to 2018, the trend is only going up and up and up. So this is not the option. You have to take AP. The question is, do you go crazy with APs? Do you say statistical about it? This is something which I do with my 10th graders, 11th graders who are my students. I work with them every year to say, okay, what APs we're going to take this year? And we start monitoring, we start putting a plan of action together, and we hold the students to it. So it's not something which your high school might offer you an AP in the 11th grade. That doesn't mean you can't self-study for an AP in the 10th grade. In fact, it shows really good on your resume if you self-studied for an AP, and then in the 11th, when the school offered it, you took one more AP that time, okay? Again, a B in an AP course versus an A in a regular course, I think you're much better off taking a B in an AP course. It shows you challenge yourself. Gradual progression with harder APs. So, show that even if you can't show that you're getting like Bs to As, as long as you're continuously challenging yourself with harder APs. For example, you do AP Geo, AP Macro, Micro in the 10th grade. In the 11th grade, you'll end up taking maybe say Calc AB. And 12th grade, you'll end up taking say AP Physics A. That's a fantastic progression, right? You don't have to get the best score, but you're trying, you're attempting, and that shows character, it shows demeanor, it shows values which they're looking for. What is AP weighted course? Apparently there's no AP exam for what is an AP weighted course? AP is always weighted, Seema. So if you take an AP course, this will because the AP scoring is from 0 to 5, if your child ends up getting a 4.5 or a 5, the AP will call it that your kid got a A. But to your transcript or to the college, it means you got out of 4 for that subject, you got a 5. because it's an AP exam, which is considered like a college level course. Is it beneficial to, but then AP way? Seema, can you ask a question one more time? I just want to make sure that, can you go off mute and ask me the question? I want to make sure I've answered the question.
Yeah, so my daughter took a college calculus course for math this year. She's in 11th grade. And she apparently she doesn't have to appear for AP exam, but it is AP weighted course that school offers. So I don't know how well recognized these kind of courses are in college. I mean, do they still get credit, or they only those which have AP exams done, only those courses get credit? So apparently her course is AP weighted is what we learned.
Yeah, it's AP weighted is the same as saying I took an AP class in the school. Like if you do Calc AB in the school and you got that's AP weighted. I don't believe that translates like if into a college credit. It
Oh,
shows well on your credentials, but if you
okay.
want to get an actual college to waive it off completely for you, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, and check with the college. It's best to call the admissions office of one of the colleges you are targeting and tell them, this is my situation. I'm doing an AP weighted course. Does your college accept it? And you'll get a very straight answer right there. My hunch is you do need to, if it's AP weighted, they will make your student take entry level exam. There will be some exam they have to take
I see.
to
Okay.
show that they've cleared, but which is harder, right? If assuming she lands up taking that course in second year of college, now she could have forgotten a lot of the concepts. So it's best if she's taking an AP weighted course to take the AP exam as a part of it.
Okay.
Hmm?
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next question is Sandhya asked, how does a student select AP if she or she's not sure of the major, is undecided whether to take CS or meds science subjects? Okay, good. We'll talk about that. I'll come to that, Sandhya. So typically, I expect a balanced progression. I think I showed you guys this earlier as well, which is you want to take exploratory courses like an one honors class. Honors and APs are different. Honors is just showing you it's harder course, but it's graded by the school. It's not a common exam. It's not a least common denominator. Okay. I think it's best to take one AP self-study, like do a CSP on your own or AP macro micro. Pretty easy damn exams. And there are lots of websites which provide you these self-paced APs information. There's Visant, but experiment less in the sophomore year. Take one or two honors, take one or two APs here. Okay, third year actually take APs in the school. This is where you go hardest with the APs. So like in this framework, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7. 7 APs is what we're talking about across the 4 years, which is a fairly balanced rigor. Like if you have 6 to 7 APs, that's pretty done. I mean, that's not to say 6 or 7 is a magical number. I mean, you have 3 APs, but they're super quality oriented. Like you've done Calc AB, BC, and Physics C, which is like the hardest AP. That's great. You're done. You don't have to worry because that's good enough for STEM course. I mean, if you've done a Spanish AP with that, great. If you've done English lit, awesome. But so it's a tomato. Sometimes, so, but what you don't want is a B grade in the junior grade. Okay. This is the hardest year. This is where my Shreya suffered a lot. Okay. She took very hard subjects and then she was really worried and she fell into depression here. We had to get a therapy and stuff to, to handle this situation. So I always talk about this with everybody. What's very important throughout these years is building a bond with some of the teachers and your guidance counselor, letting them know what subjects you are taking, what you're thinking, keep talking to them, build that relationship. Very important as a part of your applications, the recommendations which I talked about. The gospel is the AP is quality over quantity. Don't like to take too many APs. I mean, at Harvard, they make a joke about this one. The maximum AP submitted at AP at Harvard was 17 number of APs. All that tells you you're just a mugpot and you figured out how to play the game. It's stupidity. You just have to take about 3 to 4 APs. If you can go a little higher, great, but don't go crazy 4 APs. Okay. Be consistent, make it relevant to the class you're going to be taking, the course you're thinking about, what motivates you, think about that. Know your competition around you. Okay. If everybody is taking a particular AP, take some APs which are outside, okay, which show you a little differently. To the earlier question, I think Sandhya or Seema asked, or Sandhya asked a question about my son is trying to take STEM. Okay. So if a STEM major is taking maybe a lit exam or a research or AP, one of those APs, that shows character. That, I mean, but make sure you explain why that character is the way it is. Okay. These are some of the easiest AP exams you can take. And again, by the way, all this stuff is available. All my presentations are available as links in the classroom. So you don't have to take screenshots or any of this stuff. You can just listen in this class. But these are the easiest AP exams to take, which is the hardest one. You can see is APOSH, biology, calculus, physics C. Physics C, I'm told, is the worst. Okay. AP Chem is like super hard. Okay. I know Shreya struggled with this one too, my daughter. See there over here, how many classes are too many? Take 4 to 5 APs, but that's it, right? For some of the selective schools, you might need to take higher. So again, a lot of this I just copy from the internet. I find information and I just put it together. Which exam people fail the most at? Physics is the hardest one. Can you take APs in the 9th grade? Yeah, you can, but schools offer APs later. It's challenging for most 9th graders, but yeah, I mean, I have 9th graders who are taking calculus, actually. I actually have one kid who's taken macro. It's not very hard, okay? This was one of the questions about the major base, right? So if you're looking at doing some business major, then these are like some of the APs you should consider doing. If you're looking at doing APs for pre-med, biochem, physics, calculus, BC, those are the exams you want to make sure you've taken in your formative years. Same thing for IVs. This is kind of a fairly cheesy one. The IVs want to see all this stuff, but you know, that's what somebody said, that this is what it should be done. I kind of agree with it. This is AP Psych, AP History. If you've done like Chem, Biology, and APOSH and Psychology, now it shows very well-rounded thinking of your personality, and it'll show in your essays the depth of your talking. Excuse me. So for calculus, for engineering, again, physics 1, physics 2, make sure you know, even physics C. I don't even think he's talking about physics C. I think he means physics C over here. Law school, make sure you've done APOSH, economics, psychology, English, art school, history, music theory, very important one. Yeah. Shreya, I think you took this one. She took AP English as well. Very important exams. So this is about the APs that I had here. I had some more good stuff about the APs. Okay, we talked about the placement, what they are. Honors courses are typically pre-APs. So if you take honors, that's considered pre-APs, not, it just shows good, but it's not an AP. Don't expect to pass because of that. Score of 3 can typically earn college credits. We talked about that. The student AP exams are at the end of the course, showing mastery over the subject. Benefits, I'm just making sure. Scholarship opportunity, this is important. You actually can qualify for several scholarships, like if there are some women in STEM scholarships and stuff. This actually helps you make a case for yourself for scholarships there. Even in the colleges, the institutional scholarships you get from here as well. Save money. 85% of selective colleges report that a student's AP experience, it does matter. What are the challenges of AP? Time management. You really need to know that how will you manage this stuff along with the, you know, your current grades. You can't go and say, oh, I got a B in this because I was studying for an AP. Doesn't show well. This is the marathon, he says, right? So August to May. This actually is wrong. This is January, should not be August here. Okay, so this is just some planning work that has to be done per week of work when you're studying for a particular type of an AP. You can see clearly the harder ones like calculus requires 6 to 7 hours a week. So this is kind of a hit list. So if your student is planning to take these exams, then make sure they've, you know, you have seen these things, that they have a good, you know, handle over these things, okay? Pre-app courses, yeah, this is the exam fee. Credit and placement. So while college award, this is kind of on the lines of what I think Sandhya, you were asking, or Seema, you were asking. Credit for AP exams, which means you earn, so most public universities are very liberal. They will give credit for pretty much all your APs, as long as they are in the line that you are pursuing. You couldn't have taken AP statistics and expect to get a credit for a medical school. Okay, so that's very important as well. Other colleges award advanced placement. You can skip these things. They will say, so what happens is some schools will give you a credit, which they'll say, so like Wellesley College, where my daughter goes, they gave her a credit. So she's actually able to graduate in 3 years because she had so many credits she had figured out. But other colleges will say, fine, you can skip the introductory course, but you can take an advanced course. So what this does is, even though they're not giving you credit and you still will graduate in 4 years, you will end up doing advanced courses, which if you're planning to do a master's later in that same subject or a PhD, you get the credits over there. So somewhere or the other, you'll get it, okay? But it's important to look at the policy of each school, which is different for this part. Then, this one section on dual enrollment difference. So I don't have anybody in this classroom which is doing international baccalaureate. Is there anybody who's doing international baccalaureate on this call? But it's okay, I'll at least go through it. So IB is typically what international students are doing. AP is what most students in the US do. Many students will end up doing dual credit, where they'll actually go to like a community college and they'll get a credit over there. Some of those dual credits are transferable, some are not. So you have to be careful about that. The sure shot way is taking an AP exam. Dual credits or concurrent enrollment. Like for example, I know some of the all the community colleges in California, their dual enrollment does transfer into the UCs, but that's it. So the philosophy, let's talk about all these three type of programs. How do you assess each of the program advantages, the costs, okay? So AP we just talked about. I'm just trying to make sure that I've got everything about the APs that we talked about. Responsibility, understanding who you are, shows your willingness to push yourself. We've talked about that. The assessment exam, you do not have to take the AP course to take the AP exam. That's a good thing, right? So you can self-study. You also don't have to send your AP score. If you don't like your score, you don't have to send it to colleges. So you do get that flexibility. So you are allowed to, they do let you push yourself. And if you fail, who cares, right? It's not going on a transcript if you don't want it. So these are some quotes from the students where they say that, it was really set them up for colleges. These are difficult, but thankful because the time management skills. So there's time management is a very important thing. Start this at 9th grade itself, where, I sound like a typical Indian dad talking about start them early, but there is something very important to see that, this time management really helps over here. IB courses are similar, but like to APs, but they're typically done for the international baccalaureate. So these are like students who come from abroad, and it's really where that thing comes in. So I'm going to skip most of the IB stuff because that's you can have an IB course versus a diploma. Let's talk about the, typically, you are challenge yourself with an IB or an AP, right? Most students will not want to do it, but it's up to you as parents to actually inculcate that ability to, the fear of failure, get it out. And I see that a lot of that in girls. They don't want to fail. They want to be 100% sure that they'll succeed, only then they want to take a class. And my girls were no different. So this is a great way to actually push your children, teach them, saying, I'll be with you, get an instructor from outside, but it moves. You can see a lot of character building in the student over time with this thing. So let's talk dual enrollment. Typically, you can go either into a 2-year college. So if you're going to go to a community college, it actually helps you for that too. If you're going to take any kind of professional colleges, the ones which offer vocational courses, this is good for that too. Okay. So, so you get high school credit and college credit both. Being college level GPA, this is not optional. Impact. Okay. So grades can impact. So for example, if your GPA is lower, in these classes, it will show on your school transcript. Okay. Um, Student is responsible for determining how dual credits will transfer the colleges select. This actually is applicable to APs too, but dual enrollment definitely. So, like for example, if you're going to apply to MIT or to UNC or to Duke or any of these big schools, make sure you call them and say, hey, I took a dual enrollment class at this community college in California. Does this even move over? Do the arithmetic to make sure that the school is actually financially viable for you to go to. I mean, think of it. You're spending $7,000, $8,000, 6 to 7. Like Shreya takes, I pay close to $38,000 every semester for her at Wellesley College. She lands up taking maximum 5 courses she can take, which is a very full load, which means that includes dorm and study and everything. But honestly, as far as I'm concerned, I'm paying $40,000 for maximum 5 courses. So sometimes she takes 4, sometimes she takes 5 classes. At $40,000, if I'm taking 5 classes, my cost is $8,000 per course, right? And if she lands up taking 3 classes for some reason, weird reason, then my cost is like $12,000 to $14,000 per course. So these things matter a lot ultimately. The requirements, yeah, okay. Don't see any more questions. I can keep going. About dual enrollments, AP presentation, we talked about this thing. Okay, so this part of the topic is, let me stop this recording and start another one for the, how much time do we have? We have about 15 more minutes.